traders, and welcome to another exciting edition of our weekly XAUUSD and GBPUSD trade analysis. Okay, so I'm excited to be here with you as we dive into the dynamic world of forex trading. So in today's video, we'll be dissecting the price action for XAUUSD and GBPUSD, identifying key and potential levels on the charts, and discussing potential strategies for the week ahead.
So right here on my screen is GBPUSD on the daily time frame. Remember, we always do a top-down analysis so as to ascertain what we should be expecting for the coming week. But before we dive into the daily time frame for GBPUSD, I want us to move to the 1 month time frame because we need to validate this trend line right here. So we'll just move over to the 1 month time frame real quick. So guys, as you can see on my screen, on the 1 month time frame for GBPUSD, you see that this trend line is a very valid trend line. That price has been on a downtrend for a while. So this trend line for GBPUSD is a very valid trend. As you can see, price tested this trend line right here and then came back to retest it right here. Also came back to retest it right here before it came back last week to also retest it right here. I'll just zoom in so we can see that retest. As you can see, price came back to retest that, respect that trend line before the little drop right here on the 1 month time frame. So we'll go back to the daily time frame, to see what we should be expecting for the coming week, guys. So for next week on GBPUSD, we'll be expecting price to continue downward since it has respected this trend line right here and even the resistance zone right here. We'll be expecting price to continue downward to respect this support zone or possibly break out of the support zone to the next support zone or even the one below it. But on the flip side, if price decides to break this high for the coming week, we'll be expecting some continuation to the upside to either respect this trend line or possibly continue upward to respect this resistance zone right here. So for next week, we're expecting some continuation to the downside. We're expecting GBPUSD to continue downward to respect this support zone right here or possibly break out of it to the next support zone just below. But on the flip side, if price decides to break this high for next week, we'll be expecting some continuations to the upside. We'll be expecting some upward movement of price to either respect this trend line right here or possibly move upward to respect this resistance zone right here. So guys, we'll still move over to the 4 hour time frame so we can also look out for some key zones that we need to pay close attention to for next week. Alright guys, right here on the 4 hours time frame for GBPUSD, as you can see, zones we marked out on the daily time frame are still very clear. So this is the recent high for price. So for next week, we are still expecting some continuation to the downside for GBPUSD. We're expecting price to move downward, to respect this support zone right here, possibly break out of it to the next support zone just below it. But on the flip side, if price decides, to break this high right here, we're expecting some continuations to the upside to either for price to respect this trend line right here or possibly respect the resistance zone just above, guys. So as you can see, price broke out of this support, came back to retest it before continuing downward. So we'll still expect some continuation of price to the downside to respect this support zone, this very valid support zone right here, or possibly break out of it, just like on the daily time frame to respect the next support zone. But on the flip side, if price decides to break this high, we'll be expecting price to continue to the upside to respect this very valid trend line right here or possibly continue upward to respect the resistance zone just above, guys. So guys, just like we always do, we still move over to the 1 hour time frame so we can see more visible and clear zones that we need to pay close attention to. Alright guys, right here is GBPUSD on the 1 hour time frame. As you can see, the zones that we marked out are very visible on the 1 hour time frame. So guys, just like we said on the 4 hour time frame, we'll be expecting price to continue downward to respect either of these support zones. But on the flip side, if price decides to break this high for next week, we'll be expecting price to move to respect this trend line right here, or possibly break out of it to the next resistance zone above, guys. So I'll just draw that out real quick. So we are still expecting price to continue downward to either respect either of this support zone just below. But on the flip side, if price decides to break this high for next week, we'll be expecting price to continue upward to respect this trend line, this very valid trend line, which was also very valid on the 1 month time frame. We're expecting price to respect that trend line before the drop, or possibly break out of the trend line to resistance zone, or possibly break out of the trend line to the resistance zone just above. So generally for next week on GBPUSD, we'll be expecting continuation to the downside to respect the support zone just below. But on the flip side, if price decides to break the recent high, we'll be expecting price to continue upward to either respect the trend line, this which is very valid on the 1 month time frame, or possibly move over to the resistance zone just above that. So that will be all for GBPUSD, guys. So let's move over to XAUUSD and see what we'll also be expecting for the coming week, guys. Alright guys, so right here on my screen is XAUUSD gold, as you can see. So right here on the daily time frame, as you can see, guys, for this week, guys, we'll be expecting price to move downward to respect this support zone right here. This is a very valid support zone that has been holding for some time now. So we'll be expecting price to move downward to respect that support zone. But on the flip side, if price decides to retrace upward, we'll be expecting price to respect this resistance zone right here before it drops to the downside. So guys, let's move over to the 4 hours time frame so we can get a closer look at these zones right here. So right here, this is the 4 hours time frame on XAUUSD, as you can see on my screen. The zones we mapped out are still very visible, as you can see. This is the very valid resistance zone right here that has been holding for a while. This is also a support that has been holding for a while. So as you can see, price has been respecting this support zone for a long time now. See, price respected it right here, also respected it a few times here, and also here. So for next week on XAUUSD, we'll be expecting price to move downward to respect this support zone. This is a very valid support zone, like we said on the daily time frame. So we'll be expecting price to move downward to respect this support zone right here before there is any continuation to the upside, or possibly a breakout. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse upward, we'll be expecting price to respect this resistance zone right here before there is any drop, or possibly a breakout to the upside, guys. So for next week, guys, we'll be expecting price to continue downward to respect this resistance zone before there's any breakout. But on the flip side, we're expecting price to move upward to respect this resistance zone right here, or possibly break out of it for next week, guys. So guys, we'll just take a look at the 1 hour time frame for XAUUSD so that we can also see some visible zones that we need to look out for the coming week. Alright, so this is the 1 hour time frame for XAUUSD, as you can see on my screen. So for next week, guys, we'll be expecting price to continue downward, just like we said on the 4 hours time frame. We'll be expecting price for XAUUSD to continue downward. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse back from this zone right here, we're expecting price to move upward to respect this resistance zone, or possibly break out of it for next week. So I'll just draw that out real quick. Guys. So we're expecting a continuation to the downside of price to either respect this support zone or possibly break out of it. But we're expecting it to hold because the support zone has been holding for a while, guys. And remember, the more price retests a particular zone, the weaker the zone becomes, guys. So we'll be expecting either price to respect this support zone or possibly break out of it to the next zone just below. So on the flip side, if price reverses from this point where it is right now, depending on the opening of the markets next week, we'll be expecting price to move upward to respect this resistance zone, or possibly break out of it to the next resistance zone just above, guys. So generally for XAUUSD, we'll be expecting some continuations to the downside, to the support zone right here. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse, to break this high, we'll be expecting price to continue to the upside, respect this resistance zone right here. This is a very valid resistance zone, or possibly break out of it to continue to the next resistance zone just above. Okay guys, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of our weekly forecast. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also turn on the notification so as to get notified whenever we post our weekly forecast. And also guys, please don't forget to join us on our weekly webinars, which are hosted every Wednesdays. You can check through the description of this video to get the link to our Telegram channel. Please don't miss out on the webinars. It's always educative, always captivating, and we share insights on forex trading as a whole. Please join us. Much love from FX. See you next week, same time, same station. GMGM guys.